What is up, everybody? Welcome to Optimus Fantasy Football. It is week 17, and while you might be out of those fantasy championships, there is still plenty of DFS to be played. Folks, we're going to get into it here for this week 17 slate. Mike, Reedy, and myself giving you all of the best plays to make some money on this holiday weekend. Everybody, thanks for joining us today on Friday, December 26, 2025. We've only got 5 days left in the year, and this is your last chance to win some money on DFS. Mike, you ready to go for this weekend?
Oh, I am. I actually have multiple lineups already set up. I had to change some prior to this because guys like Harold Fannin look like they might not play, and Mac Collins is already out. Keishon Butte is already out. Yeah. It's why I try not to set lineups till today, but
we got excited. It's Christmas week. How can you not? Yeah, the Fannin possibly not playing kills me. I have him at tight end 3 in my rankings this week. Very brutal, but if he goes, he's someone you want to start in any format, whether it's DFS or season long, you're playing in your championships.
I had so much of him going in both DFS and season long. I was like, oh, no, not you too. But it's better than an in-game injury if we know he's not going ahead of time. That's all.
Yep. Exactly. All right, Mike, let's go ahead and get into these quarterbacks for this week 17 slate here. The first one I want to talk about, the man, the myth, the legend, Jacoby Brissett. They're up against the Bengals, who are giving up the 4th most points to quarterbacks because their defense is absolutely atrocious. Brissett's $5,700 on DraftKings, $7,600 on FanDuel. This is a great pay down option for this quarterback who he's just been automatic, Mike.
So other than last week, right? Last week was the first time he was held under like 300 yards and or multiple touchdowns since he took over the job, right? So the Falcons did a really good job last week. The Bengals have been better against the pass lately than they were. Some of that is, I think, because their offense is actually on the field a little bit longer than it was in the past. But we know Jacoby Brissett's going to throw the ball 35 plus times. No matter what, even though you can run on the Bengals too, and we can talk about other players later, but Vegas has this game at 53.5, highest over-under on the main slate. I too see it as a shootout. I think both running backs might be as good as well as the quarterbacks and the wide receivers because neither defense is anything to look forward to on either side of the ball. So I'm playing a lot of Jacoby Brissett this week. I did not play him as much last week, but this week I really like him against the Bengals.
Yeah, this is a great matchup. And even when the Bengals offense is scoring, teams are scoring against their defense and they're still losing. So
and his price point is beautiful. When you consider what he's done, I'm surprised his price point hasn't gone way up.
Yeah, same with Tyler Shuck. Honestly, he's 5,200 on DraftKings this week, 7,300 on FanDuel, and they're up against the Titans. Tyler Shuck is someone that I was parroting on Monday or yelling about on Monday that you needed to be going and getting him off of waivers for your championships because he has a top 5 quarterback upside this week. Really, Tyler Shuck has had a top 10 quarterback upside for the last 3 or 4 weeks, and in this matchup against Tennessee, I think he could be a top 3 quarterback in fantasy this week.
He's the QB7 over the past 4 weeks, Tyler Shuck is. QB7. Right? This guy, people like, this is the same Titans team that people were saying how wonderful Shedeur Sanders is because he blew them up. And he hasn't done squat since. So it's a great spot to play Tyler Shuck. Fantastic spot to play him.
Yeah. All right. Now we're going to hit 2 quarterbacks in the same game to round out these quarterbacks, Mike. The first one's Phillip Rivers. Old man Rivers, somewhat viable. He's $4,700 on DraftKings, $6,300 on FanDuel. The Jaguars have been good, but Phillip Rivers seems to have figured out some little secret last week where he can dink and dunk his way to being fantasy relevant.
Well, they're good, but they give up the 12th most fantasy points to quarterbacks, right? So you can pass on them. They're in the bottom third, right, of the league in regards to pass defense. They're good against the run. They are really good against the run. They're a good defense overall. But I think we're going to see him hit them where they've been beat, which is medium and deep balls, right? They do a really good job at the short passing game. So, like, I like him potentially throwing a touchdown pass to Alec Pierce this week. Pittman might be viable this week. I would like to see two. I that other guy I have already going in multiple spots as well.
Yeah.
And I like the flip side, the other side of this game as well. And we can segue to him if you want to start.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence. Colts give up the 15th most fantasy points to quarterback. He's 6,100 on DraftKings. He is $8,000 on FanDuel. But Trevor Lawrence is playing out of his mind right now, Mike. I mean, look what he did in Denver. Denver is one of the best defenses against quarterbacks in the league, and he shredded them last weekend.
He's got the best wide receiving group he's ever had since Jacoby Myers has got there and Parker Washington has become viable, right? Yep. They've 3 really good wide receivers. In week 14 they played, he had 244 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Colts. You're looking at a game probably similar to that because he's just been fantastic for a while now. Like he's going to bust this Colts team up. Plus the Colts safety is out. Daniel Scott, right? He's on injured reserve.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Sauce is back this week or not. Sauce Gardner. If he's
not
back,
like he is.
If he doesn't play, this could be an easy 3 touchdown game for Lawrence, right? Like
very easy. Plus maybe pepper in a rushing touchdown too.
Yeah, his price point's gone up, deservedly so.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. But it's
all
great.
Right,
great spot
to
play him.
Let's move on to the running backs on this slate, Mike. The first one we're going to talk about, Ashton Genty. They're up against the Giants, the Raiders are. They give up the 3rd most fantasy points. So this is a late slate game. $6,100 on DraftKings, $7,500 on FanDuel. This is a spot where I think the Raiders can get him going. They've had a hard time getting him going all season. They can lean on the run this week, which they're probably going to want to do. Geno Smith, just take the ball out of his damn hands. They don't have Brock Bowers. The passing attack is trash. They're just going to have to run Genty. On volume alone, I love this play.
Well, in my research, in all fairness to Geno Smith, we've talked about him before where when he had a good matchup, we said to play him. He's had bad pass. Like they played really tough passing defenses 6 weeks in a row. This is an easy one. But it's also a defense that can't defend the run. The Giants defense is just bad. Genty had 25 total touches last week, 188 yards and 2 touchdowns. So it feels to people like you're chasing points, but the Giants give up the 3rd most fantasy points to running backs. So it's not. Yep. And with Brock Bowers out, Genty's probably going to be involved in both the passing game a little bit more as well as running the ball. I think this is a big week for him.
I do too. It doesn't feel like chasing points to me at all. This feels like kind of a sneaky boom play, honestly. A guy that could maybe be a slate breaker. Who knows? Chase Brown's kind of in that territory too, up against the Cardinals, giving up the 2nd most points to running backs. Chase Brown is $7,400 on DraftKings, $8,000 on FanDuel. And in this matchup, even Samaj P-Ride might be viable.
So I think so as well, by the way. I actually have him going in a dynasty league. But Brown scored 3 touchdowns in week 16. Another place where you might feel like you're chasing points, right? Early in the season, a lot of people were saying, what a bust. I wish I didn't draft him in redraft. There was this guy wearing clear-rimmed glasses that said, no, now's the time to acquire him because his schedule's going to get easy, and it's been easy for a while. And it's still easy as the Cardinals give the 2nd most fantasy points to running backs, right? So Chase Brown should have a really good week. I think that's going to be a fun game to watch, by the way. I do
too.
Game to watch.
I do too. And, for all of his inefficiency earlier in the season, this run game in Cincinnati has gotten so much better.
The schedule got easier, which is a huge factor for this, and Burrow being healthy helps.
Yep.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Yep. The combination has been great. So I like him a lot.
So something to monitor for this next player. Trevion Henderson is in concussion protocol. He did practice today. We don't know the extent of what he did in practice today. That report has not come out. If he does not play, or even if he really does play, Ramondre Stevenson, they're up against the Jets. They give up the 4th most fantasy points to running backs. They're rolling out Brady Cook again. So in all likelihood, New England's going to have the ball for most of this game. This is a good week to give Drake May a little bit of a break, even though you probably won't necessarily. He's probably a solid play in DFS this week as well. But this looks to be a run-heavy game for New England. Plain and simple. And I like Ramondre a lot.
running backs average 132 yards and 1.5 touchdowns a game per week against the Jets. You can run on them. If Henderson plays, he wasn't wearing a red shirt at practice today. That's the extent of what I know. That's all I know. If he plays, Henderson's a play too. But if he doesn't play, Ramondre is kind of like should be chalk because he's going to get a huge workload against a really bad defense, and he'll produce.
Yeah. Another running back on this slate that's going to be chalk, but I like him anyway. James Cook up against the Eagles, giving up the 10th most fantasy points to running backs. He is expensive. He's 8,000 on DraftKings, 9,000 on FanDuel. He's a player this week, though, because he has really been their offense. The receivers are struggling. Josh Allen is injured, playing, but injured. So he's going to be somewhat limited in what he can do. This feels like a James Cook week to me. And with as good as he's been as of late, it just makes sense that this is going to be a huge game for him. And he's a chalky player I want on my lineups because I want to keep up with everybody else who has him.
And well, even though the price point's high, right? Yeah. But the Eagles give up the 10th most fantasy points to running backs. This game, you have two run funnel defenses going against each other. I like the other running back, even though I know we're not talking about him, Barkley as well. They're both high priced, though. Almost impossible to fit them both in. I'd rather play Cook. In his past two games, he has 5 touchdowns. He also ran for over 100 yards in each game. The Bills, I think, have figured out that their success is totally on the shoulders of Josh Allen and James Cook.
Yeah, I think so. And it's true. It is. It 1000% is. All right, Mike, let's move on to some of these wide receivers on this week 17 slate. The first one, this is a nice stacking opportunity with Tyler Shuck. We've got Chris Olave. They are, of course, up against the Titans. They give up the 11th most points to fantasy wide receivers. Olave is $7,200 on DraftKings, $8,100 on FanDuel. On volume alone, I would play him pretty much every week. But now the quarterback play's gotten better from Shuck, and that makes that volume more relevant.
So the last 2 games, 25 targets, 16 receptions. This is where it gets really good. 253 total yards and 3 touchdowns over the last couple of games. And some of that is Tyler Shuck's growth as a quarterback, right? Like we're watching him grow as the season progresses. He's actually been great for Chris Olave. Mm-hmm. He's a little pricey too, but if you can afford to pay up for a wide receiver, he's someone I would pay up for this week.
Yeah, he's someone I would pay up for too. Jacoby Myers, this is not a pay up. It should be. I don't know why the price isn't catching up here, but they are up against the Colts, who give up the 3rd most fantasy points to wide receivers, Mike. $5,300 on DraftKings, $6,800 on FanDuel. This seems like a steal for Myers.
Bad week last week. There's a lot of options to pass to on that Jaguars team right now. That's a actually good real life football team. Last time they played week 14, he had 10 targets. He only caught 4 of those, but he had 39 yards and a touchdown, and I'll take that, right? If he gets 40 yards ish in a touchdown, I think that's a good week, especially at his price point. Like that's nice. I think he's a great play this week. I ran a poll on which Jaguars wide receiver should you play, and had Brian Thomas Jr., Jacoby Myers, and Parker Washington, and it was really between Parker Washington and Jacoby Myers, but I don't think it should have been. I think with the different defense they're playing this week, it's going to go the other way.
I do too. Well, what Denver was able to do last week is they picked a receiver to focus on. They picked a receiver to shut down, and that receiver was Jacoby Myers because he's the one who'd been producing. Then they got burned by Parker Washington. Because when you put Riley Moss on somebody, he's guaranteed 2 pass interference calls. You can ask Bomani Jones why that keeps happening. He's got an opinion on it. But, I think Myers is the play this week. And then on the other side of this matchup, Alec Pierce, he's $4,700 on DraftKings, $5,800 on FanDuel. I like this play simply because Phillip Rivers seems to really like Alec Pierce. And if Rivers is going to be at quarterback, we're going to see a lot of targets go Pierce's way.
The old man proved he can still throw it downfield this last game. And you know what you can do against the Jags? You can do that. That's how to beat them in the passing game. The last time they played, Pierce had 5 receptions and 80 yards. We're probably looking at a game similar to that. I would like to see multiple touchdowns as well. This is a guy I'm playing in DFS a lot because of price point, right? He's pretty low, and it allows me to pay up elsewhere. Like high ups.
Stack him with Phillip Rivers and then load up all over your lineup. I mean, that's a pretty solid strategy this week. Wan'Dale Robinson's the last wide receiver on this list, Mike. They are playing the Raiders. This is a late slate game. $5,700 on DraftKings, $6,100 on FanDuel. It's the Raiders, and it's Wan'Dale Robinson. There aren't a lot of other options for Jackson Dart. On volume alone, I love Wan'Dale this week, but he's been producing with that volume, so I love it even more.
He's had 27% target share on this team for the season.
Yeah.
I think it's like 146 targets. I don't have that in my notes for the show, by the way. But the volume's going to be there. That's what I was going to say. The volume's going to be there for him. Expect him to produce. The Raiders give the 10th most fantasy points to wide receivers. You know, Slayton is more of a dart throw type of player where he might get 3 to 5 targets tops. Robinson's probably going to get 7 to 10 targets again. This is I like him.
The volume's there. All right, Mike, let's move on to the tight ends. Trey McBride, tight end 1 on the season by almost 75 fantasy points in half
That's
PPR.
crazy.
It's insane. Kyle Pitts is right behind him by 75 points. It's tight end 2.
God, that's the best, isn't it? What a redeeming story for Kyle Pitts.
Good for him. Yeah. I love Kyle Pitts. I have been a Kyle Pitts truther along with Smokey Hill Nelson for years. I'm glad to see him producing. The rest of this offense is ugly, but Kyle Pitts is producing. But Trey McBride, they're up against the Bengals. We know what tight ends do to the Bengals. We've got Jacoby Brissett throwing him the ball. He's 7,500 on DraftKings, 8,000 on FanDuel. This is a big pay up at tight end, but it's worth it for what McBride's been doing.
Every single week, we've only had one flop, I think, by the way. We're saying to play a tight end against the Bengals because they give up the most fantasy points to tight ends. So as long as they're playing in the main slate, you want to run a tight end out up against them. Now you get the best tight end in football going up against them, and he's been so good since Brissett took over. So tight ends average 7 receptions, 91 yards, and a touchdown every week against the Bengals. That's like a regular week for McBride.
Right.
You know, so I think this is a smash spot. I've actually started some lineups with him. It's just too good to be true.
Yeah. I'll pay the 7,500 for him. I don't care. Brenton Strange over in Jacksonville. They're up against Colts, who are giving up the 6th most fantasy points to tight ends this year. He's $4,000 on DraftKings. He is $5,600 on FanDuel. I just like Brenton Strange in general. This is a good matchup for him.
It is.
See him getting somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 to 10 targets this week as well.
I think he's going to be very chalky. Mm-hmm. I think he's going to produce a good game. Last time they played, he only had 4 fantasy points. He had a bad game. Again, they have a lot of mouths to feed. Right. He's going to be chalky. So as much as I like him, everybody does.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking about Brenton Strange. So I think he's a good play. I'm avoiding him and playing guys like McBride that people don't want to pay up for, and a couple other guys, just because I think Strange is going to be the chalk. But I do think he'll produce. I think you're looking at 8 to 12 fantasy points this week from Brenton Strange,
which is pretty good for a low price tight end. And I'll take that every single week.
I think that's excellent. I know people getting advice from me will tell me they expected 40, but no, yeah.
All right, Mike. The next one I want to talk about, and we're hoping he gets off the injury report, Harold Fannin in Cleveland. They're up against the Steelers, giving up the 3rd most points to fantasy defenses. 5,000 on DraftKings, $6,500 on FanDuel. David Njoku's not looking like he's going to play this week. If he's healthy, he could be the tight end 1, even ahead of Trey McBride in this matchup.
We all want someone to look at us the way Shedeur Sanders looks at Harold Fannin Jr. The love, the focus. He is the apple of Shedeur Sanders' eye, and he gets a ton of targets. He has 3 touchdowns over the past 4 games, and since Sanders has taken over, he's averaged 8 targets a game. So healthy and active, I want him in a lineup. Yes.
Yep. I've got him at tight end 3 for the week.
8 targets a game. The volume's there.
He's a wide receiver. He's the team's wide receiver 1. If you've ever listened to Andrew Cooper talk about tight ends, you're looking for a guy who's the 1st or 2nd option on their team in passing. Yep. Those are the tight ends you want. That's Trey McBride. That's Harold Fannin. It's not Brenton Strange, but it could be Taysom Hill this week. They're up against the Titans, who give up the 16th most fantasy points to tight ends. But that doesn't matter because Taysom Hill's not going to be playing tight end this weekend. They are without Devin Neal. They are without Kendre Miller. They're likely going to be without Alvin Kamara this week.
He's out.
Kamara is officially out. Okay,
Yep,
Kamara is officially out. Last week, Taysom Hill, in this same situation, led the team in carries. Plus, he added 4 catches for 30 yards.
And he threw a touchdown.
And he threw a touchdown. He was tight end like 4.
Yeah.
There aren't a lot of other options in this offense in the run game.
Look at that DraftKings price point. I have him going on DraftKings because he's only $2,700.
Yeah.
Like
he was
that's
a guy
amazing.
In our higher and lower article that came out yesterday. He was one of my guys. I'm significantly higher than consensus on him. Consensus has him at tight end 14. I have him at tight end 6.
Yeah, I would say tight end 6-ish myself.
Yep.
If Fannin doesn't go, he moves up a slot because I would play Fannin over him.
Yep.
The Taysom Hill thing is people like, well, he could get you 2 points or he could get you 30. You're right. Yeah. He could. But with all these running backs out and him as the de facto running back and on the field, if Taysom Hills is going to be on the field for 70% of the snaps and touching the football, I want him in my lineup as a tight end.
Well, there's an extra little narrative to this that I want to point out is that if you saw his press conference last weekend, he loves playing in New Orleans. He loves the city, he loves the team, and he loves his teammates. And he doesn't know if he's going to be back. He doesn't know if he's going to
retire. If they don't sign him, he's going to retire.
Right. So he knows this could be his last couple of games to do something fun in the NFL. I wouldn't be surprised to see them scheme stuff for him to get him more involved, since what else does this team have to play for? They're out of the playoffs. They're playing for pride at this point. They're trying to get Tyler Shuck more experience and see what else they have around him. There's nothing else to show around. So just use Taysom Hill all day. Let the man have his due. He did a lot of fun stuff for all of us.
Especially since I'm plugging him in many lineups. Yes, please let him do it. I think it's so much fun. And I know the fantasy truthers don't like it. I love it when a guy who's a wide receiver is labeled a tight end or quarterback. Or in this case, he's like a fullback / quarterback labeled a tight end. And people are like, why? But that's an unfair advantage. Well, yeah, but I think the weird variance of stuff makes it more fun, not less fun, more fun.
Way more fun. He's you'll remember these guys. He's Ozzie Guillen, Lloyd McClendon, that utility guy who in one game might play all 9 positions on a baseball field.
Yeah.
And McClendon did it twice.
He's Cooper Flagg.
Yeah.
Started the season at point guard and now he plays center.
Well, he plays center point guard, I think is a good way to put it. We just got NBA League Pass for Christmas for Jackson, so I'm going to be watching a lot more basketball.
Flagg was playing center yesterday, and they were talking about it. I was like, oh, well, he wasn't a good point guard. He's a much better center.
Oh, Cooper Flagg's ridiculous. All right, well, let's move on to some of these ridiculous defense choices for this week's 17 slate. No, they're ridiculously good. The first one, the Patriots are up against the Jets. I mean, do we really need to say it? $3,900 on DraftKings, $5,500 on FanDuel. Okay. Brady Cook starting at quarterback. Garrett Wilson's been shut down for the season. Mason Taylor is inactive for this weekend. Breece Hall is like a ghost of a running back because I think he's looking at this offense like, why would I beat my body up for this? He's not taking risks.
He shouldn't. So
no, he shouldn't.
The past 3 games since Brady has taken over at quarterback, that's right, Brady Cook, fantasy defenses have averaged 15 points a week against them. Mm-hmm. They've given up 17 sacks and 7 interceptions over that time frame. The Patriots defense is, I mean, if you want to pay up for them, I would do it. They're the highest, most expensive defense on the slate, but it's well worth it. If they don't get you 10 fantasy points, something went severely wrong. And Brady Cook is just not very good.
No.
The Jets have given up.
The Jets have 100% given up.
Yep.
We should relegate them to the ACC. I think that sounds
USFL.
Nice. No, I don't think they could survive there, Mike. All right. A defense we haven't been talking too much about this season, but this is a good matchup. The Steelers defense are up against the Browns. The Browns are giving up the third most fantasy points to fantasy defenses, which really makes sense given how crap they are. 3,300 on DraftKings, 4,400 on FanDuel. I love this play. I'm probably still going to roll with the Patriots this week, but if you want to get off of them, this is a good play.
Yeah, they won't be very chalky. Teams on the season, teams average 10 fantasy points a week against the Browns. Since Shedeur Sanders has taken over, there's some kind of perception like the team's tremendously better. They're not. Teams average 9.7 fantasy points a week against them since Shedeur Sanders has taken over. Yeah. So better than they were, but still not good. Yeah. I like this one. I like the next one better.
You mean the Giants against the Raiders?
Yeah, believe it or not, if I was going to pivot off the Pats in DFS, I would pivot to the Giants this week.
Well, I wrote about their defense in our waiver wire article this week. And the reason I wrote about them is because if you look at this team on paper, like their defense should be really good. It's been a coaching issue. It's been a coordination issue. It's been a play calling issue. This is the Raiders. They don't have to do any of those things well to succeed this weekend. Brian Burns is going to get at Geno Smith. They're going to get 4 or 5 sacks in this game. I expect a couple of turnovers.
They destroyed the Vikings last week.
Mm-hmm.
The Lions, who have a good defense, supposedly couldn't do it yesterday. But last week, the Giants just destroyed them. They had 4 sacks, an interception, a fumble recovery, and a defensive touchdown. We've talked about it before. The Raiders average the most sacks per game. It's 3.8 now. It went down a little, but it's still really high. So it's like 4 sacks a game. So and teams average 12 fantasy points a game against the Raiders over the past 3 games.
Yeah.
So, against really bad offenses, the Giants defense has been good. So if I was going to pivot away for upside, I think you're looking at a team that could potentially get you, I don't know, double-digit fantasy points anyways this week, right?
Sure. No, absolutely. Yeah. And again, like I said, this defense is really good on paper. They just haven't been playing well.
Well, they have the opportunity this week against a really bad offense.
Yep. Another defense that hasn't been great, the Saints, but they're playing the Titans this week, give up the 4th most fantasy points to defenses.
There's such a weird defense, by the way, because if you go and look at their fantasy scores, when they should produce some fantasy numbers, they do most of the time. And then they just have like absolutely pathetic games mixed in where they get like -2 or 0.
It's coaching.
It's weird.
Yeah. But they're not going to be a chalk play. Like if you're going to pay down on a defense, I wouldn't expect 10 points out of this defense, but 8, 9, somewhere around in there, I think is fairly
If you're
reasonable.
expecting 40, you'll be terribly disappointed.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, look, I got 5 points out of Josh Allen in fantasy championship weekend or semifinal weekend. It knocked me out. Lost to Brad Stadler at Player Profiler. Could have been up against Fitz from Fantasy Pros. Didn't happen. I'm not bitter. Okay,
not at all.
Bitter. Not at all. Not at all. Folks, I want to say, first of all, thank you for tuning in today. We do have one more week of DFS next week for sure. And in the playoffs, there's lots of fun playoff DFS matches as well. So we're going to get you through all of those, but we hope your week 17 is awesome. And we hope that Santa gives you a little late present of some DFS wins with these plays we brought to you. Make sure you check out optimusfantasy.com. We're going to have content coming out next week as well around more of the betting in DFS since the fantasy season is over. And we're going to have a lot of Senior Bowl coverage starting in 2 weeks. Just look forward to it. We're going to be prepping on some players that are going to be there. And then all week for the Senior Bowl, January 26th to February 1st, 3 of us on the ground dropping a ton of content. So make sure you follow along for that. We're going to get you ready for next season before you even knew you needed to be ready, but you're going to beat your league mates. So that's what's important. And then head over to tools.optimusfantasy.com. We've got a ton of data over there. Get it for free through the end of February with the code GIFT-OPTIMUS. That's GIFT-OPTIMUS at tools.optimusfantasy.com. Mike, thanks for riding with me today, man. It's been a fun season. We got a couple more weeks to go. It's been a pleasure. For Mike Reedy, I'm Nate Polvogt. Folks, we will see you next week.
Thank you.